Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on December 14th, 2024 at approximately 4:30 p.m. PST. Now, I've made it my life calling to guide people. Well, that came out really well. Guide people. Well, as you can see, I'm a little rusty. We've been on a run for a while. But anyway, I've made it my life calling to help people realize that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay. Now, and I completely scrambled that. So why don't we just get into it and be done with it? In any event, we're looking at mourning, how to cope. Now, most people look at mourning as, oh, somebody died. And before I get into it, Robert White, how are you? You are in with the gold today. Most people, when they talk about mourning, they literally talk about the idea of somebody has passed away. Okay, and then there's all kinds of emotions that go along with it. Some people cry, some people go into a real quiet place, and some people literally will break out laughing. They're all viable means of coping with severe loss. What people don't realize, okay, is that mourning can happen due to the loss of an object, the loss of a friendship connection, or the loss of, quite frankly, what I'm going to call a childhood illusion. But how do you cope with it? Well, the first thing you got to look at is, are you going to dwell on the fact that they're gone, or that the issue is gone, or are you going to focus on the things that were good that you went through with it? And we will get into that as we go along. Renee Andrews, welcome aboard. You have come in with the silver today. And we have Storm in the background there handling all of the tech support. You know, quite frankly, without him, God knows how many heart attacks I would have bothered with. But when we look at mourning, here we are a couple of weeks from the end of 2024. Okay, there's a lot of things people have gone through. Many people have passed away. Rachel, you are in with the bronze. Welcome aboard. And thank you so much for that. We're only here for 4 days in all fairness, then we're gone until the 4th of January. But there's a lot of change coming up. We'll get to that later. Right now, we've only got a couple of weeks left until the end of 2024. Now, when we go into 2024, well, let's face it, or when we go into 2025, every moment is a new beginning. But we're going to stick to the traditional idea. You got a couple of weeks left of the year. Now, there's many things that have gone on. You've undoubtedly lost people that you knew, as in they passed away. In all likelihood, if they passed away, you probably know where they are. Because if you put them in the ground, the odds are their body's still there. But, whoa, you are in with honorable mention. How you doing? Glad you could join us. So when we're looking at things being left behind, I could take a look at the changes that my world is going through. Okay, the removal of the clutter. It used to, the amount of stuff I had used to bring a certain sense of accomplishment. Now it's in the way, and this is why it's going. But the real key to mourning any loss is to not dwell on the fact that it's gone. You really focus on, what was it like when that thing was here? What were the good things? Even with a relationship that has buckled, there had to be some good things, or you wouldn't have gotten into the relationship in the first place. One of the best coping mechanisms I ever came across was write a letter literally to either the person that passed on, or possibly maybe you've lost a valuable item of yours. instead of dwelling on the fact it's gone, write a farewell letter to it. I know that sounds really weird, but what you got to realize is by writing that, you end up literally letting go of the negative energy that you're holding on to. Now, myself, I've gone through a lot of loss, a lot of realizations. And I'm going to relay some of them. But the reality is, I'm hoping that it will bring to mind some of what you've lost and realize that I know where you're coming from. I've been there. This is an issue of just common ground. LA Moon is in the house. Of course, LA is very important in a lot of ways. Okay, she does handle a lot of the moderator stuff. Possibly the most important part there is she's also the one that keeps a real close eye out on my health. So if she pipes up and says, look, you're losing this, you gotta go get something, you can bet I'm going to get up and go. Okay, and Susan Ahern has just shown up, the happy medium. How you doing, Susan? Glad you could join us. And there we have Joe Stewart wandering in. You know, here we are. Where are we? We're, 5 minutes in? Yeah, 5 minutes in and we're 11 deep. And 12 deep. You know, the reality of it is this. As we come to the end of the year, take a look back if you have them, and we're going to cover this in a couple of days. But if you had goals from last year, you know, if you had New Year's resolutions and you didn't make them, it's okay. Let go of it. Do not look at it going, oh, I'm a failure. I didn't make this goal I had for myself. A couple of things may have gotten in the way. Maybe your goal was too big. Okay. And this is why we look at things, even with mourning. I appreciate that, Robert. Robert White's just piping up. He goes, she's not the only one looking at your health. No, and that's why I say this place, you know, this group that I've got here, I am absolutely astonished by the amount of support that I've gotten from individuals. This is one of the primary reasons why I'm still here. And why, frankly, although there will be changes in 2025, we are changing things, you know, but one thing we're not changing is I'm not shutting the stream down. Okay, we'll get to that. In all fairness, we've got a whole pile of itineraries, things sorted around. The important factor with mourning is not to let it go. Okay, you know, no, that's not true. It's not to hang on to it. If you take the spelling of mourning as in MOURN, and you change that mourn to MORNING, okay, then it's very much, it helps you look at it going, okay, I had all this bad stuff going on and went to sleep. Now I'm getting up, and now is a brand new day. Okay, so the reality of it is, when you start looking at the things that are going on that are new to you, they can help you deal with the things of the past. Because as we've talked about before, you cannot change that which has already happened. So if you've already suffered a loss, if somebody you knew passed away, I'm pretty certain if they've already been buried, you'd prefer they stay there. You know, the pet cemetery thing doesn't work that well for socializing. You know, one of the things you have to realize when somebody loses something, you know, when somebody loses something, they go through a period of mourning. Many people will literally, even the strongest of them, okay, even the strongest will break down in tears. Now, for those males out there or the females that go, oh, crying is unmanly, I'm telling you, there's only one reason I don't personally cry much. Okay, got nothing to do with me with being too manly or not manly enough. Tears is a case of showing your emotions. Okay, you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be hurt. You're allowed to be lonely. The reason I do my best not to cry is because the acid level in my skin is so high, I actually physically burn my face as well. But when you look at something, when you're looking at a loss, sometimes it's the loss of somebody you know. Absolutely, it is, Robert. Robert White is just saying crying is a release mechanism, and it really is. Now, the other thing that I will tell you, if you take, when you're really feeling down, take either hand, your right one or your left, doesn't matter. Put them palm down on a solid surface, something that usually sits on the ground. Okay, be it a couch, a wall, a heavy dining room table, a recliner, you get the idea. You put it palm down and you feel that excess energy running out of your hand, right, running out of the palm of your hand, much like water out of a faucet. By doing this, you will feel yourself get a little lighter. Now, some of you will say, well, how do I know I will? Maybe I won't. Well, maybe you won't. I'm looking at generally speaking. Now, understand, over the course of my career, I have had well over 100,000 clients, and virtually all of them that have actually implemented this tool, it's worked for. So you are right. Maybe it won't work. I just got to call something up, a minor sidetrack here. Hopefully it didn't go too far. Oh yeah, scrolled all the way down. Nope. I don't think I'm going to find it, so I'm not going to bother. I was just looking at something that was absolutely comical. Only it turned out that it scrolled out because it was on Facebook. And I have no idea how far I would have to go, so I guess that's over. Anyway, what the post was, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. Okay, but what it said, taking it away from the morning side for half a minute until you get to the morning after the night before. Apparently, Ryan, whiskey on the rocks is bad for your health. Whiskey on ice is bad for your health. Rum on ice is bad for your health. Vodka on ice is bad for your health. Coca-Cola on ice is bad for your health. So the post goes on to say, get it straight, people. Ice is lethal. Okay, so maybe you want to knock off the ice a little as we go into the holiday season. I mean, take a look at it. Ice wasn't really great for the Titanic either. But like I said, that's a little. It would have been better if I could have kept it, but it upgraded, and that ended that. But when we are dealing with mourning, okay, when we're dealing with that whole situation, what you've got to remember is that everything you deal with, okay, every time you go through a loss, maybe you lost an important item of yours. Maybe as a kid, it was just a toy. To you, it meant to the adult, it may be just a toy. To a child, it could be the center of their world. Okay, it is not for you, it is not for me to say whether it's something to mourn. But we have to realize, I looked it up on the internet here. Imagine that, me doing that. I told you things were changing. But according to the internet definition, mourning is the expression of deep sorrow for one who has died. Okay. Then when we have grief, grief itself is the internal expression of that. So when we are talking about mourning, we're talking about your outward behavior. Now, you can certainly sit back and go, the world is a terrible place. I've lost everything that really mattered. And now, well, the reality of it is this. If you look at the way your world is and you go, I'm moving forward in spite of it, take a look at the loss and ask yourself this. Is there anything you can do about the loss? Is there anything you can do to bring it back? Well, the short answer is no. As we've discussed before, you cannot undo that which has already been done. You can't unthink it, you can't unknow it. So, if you have suffered a loss, okay, first things first, give yourself permission to mourn. Give yourself permission to feel that loss. There is absolutely nothing wrong with crying. But before you people do the normal thing, or what seems to be the normal thing, if you're going through a severe loss, you're having struggles, maybe you just lost your job, okay, and you're going through this period of borderline depression, maybe it's way over the border. I will tell you this, of all the coping mechanisms out there, drinking isn't one of them. Alcohol itself literally simply knocks out trained and learned inhibitors, meaning if you go to drinking because you're fighting depression or you're fighting a loss, you're fighting that mourning period, alcohol will literally knock out your ability to cope with it. I'm a firm believer, like Joe's just saying, in private though, of course. The reality is I'm a firm believer, whether you're out in public or in private, let yourself mourn the way you see fit, providing you're not hurting somebody else for obvious reasons. Okay, but again, now you got to remember, well, you don't have to remember, maybe you don't. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I will tell you, alcohol has never helped anybody in the mourning process. Okay, and it's completely scrambled the morning after the night before. I had it down to a fine art where I would drink for any reason. I was conscious that was a good reason to drink. Okay, but when we are looking at the issue of mourning, everybody does it in their own way. Okay, even like years ago, 2010, I snapped my right arm and it was completely out of commission. I had it bound up for a staggering 10 days. But I will tell you, it did upset me. It made things really difficult. And even something as simple as that, as apparently simple as that, can lead to a period of mourning. All of a sudden, you can't do things that you used to be able to. Okay, I used to be able to run for miles, even with a bad leg. Now I go 1 step, 2 step, 3 step floor. It's great. I don't even need the alcohol to pull that off anymore. When you're looking at mourning, okay, give yourself permission to mourn in your fashion. If this means curling up in a corner, turning the lights down, and hiding from the world, do so. I am just cautioning you, leave alcohol in the bottle. If you leave the alcohol in the bottle, I will warn you, you will do much better than if you drink it. But we have to realize mourning takes place for everything. Maybe you've lost your house. Okay, maybe you've just gotten a bill that you're looking at going, I can no longer afford to do anything that I really desire to. These are all things that will trigger a period of mourning. Now, mourning tends to come hand in hand with grief, And if it goes on too long, it tends to bring about depression. Now, I will tell you, it is up to you as to whether you're going to buy into the mourning or you're going to find a reason to move forward. I know I went through when I got divorced the first time, the first Christmas that I was on my own again. Bear in mind, I'd been with the same woman for 18 years. And the first Christmas that I was on my own, I'm sitting there on the couch, pretty depressed. I'm just looking at things going, well, nothing's like it was. It doesn't feel the same. And it doesn't. So I went through that period of mourning going, oh, woe is me, and it's just all wrong. And then I finally looked at it and went, okay, and this is where where I encourage you to get to. You sit there, you go through your bout of self-reprisal or whatever you want to call it. Okay. And you then sit up, you look in the mirror and you go, okay, this is the way my life is right now. What am I going to do to help myself feel better? And again, alcohol won't do it. Sure, it'll help you feel better for a little while. But there is an old saying that goes, everything in moderation. I'm telling you, that's a great idea. And for those of you that have this brilliant idea of if it's natural, it's okay, rest assured, arsenic is natural. I'm thinking it's a bad thing to drink. But you can look at the whole issue of loss as what you've let go of. Or you can look at the idea of loss as, okay, I moved something out of my way so I can have something better. Whenever I can find the thing. You know, I work on a number of different fields at the same time, so that's always handy. This is what's called thinking about things as they go along. And naturally, I desire to find something that's not going to pop up for me. What I was looking at is I got a deck of tarot cards here. Now, for those of you that work with tarot, okay, there's a neat little card in this deck called the Tower. And the Tower is really good when you start looking at mourning. Because what the Tower tells you is you're rebuilding. You're looking at what you were going through and what you're going to go through now. But it's your call what you do with it. One of these days, hopefully next year will be better. Well, I'm going to ensure the next year works better for me. One of the biggest things we have to remember where mourning is concerned is it's up to you whether or not you're going to hang on to it. Okay. Now, I know some of you people work with tarot cards. When I look at the tarot, now this is the Rider-Waite deck. Okay. And I don't expect, everybody is not going to agree with this. Okay. Because some of you don't believe in tarot cards. See, I believe in them because, well, here's a card. It's here. Kind of hard to deny it's here, at least effectively. Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Joe Monk, missed you there. Joe goes, so, arsenic in moderation. Got it. Just be aware. Arsenic, unlike alcohol, unlike cigarettes, unlike breathing, arsenic kills a lot quicker. LA, hopefully your day is going well. Now, the tarot card, the Tower, tells you you're clearing things off. Now, have you ever noticed with construction, if there's an old building there, and we'll call it your life was built there, and this is the way it looked. Now something's gone, and that life you had is now over. Now it's time to rebuild, but you don't wipe yourself out. You take a look at the shambles you've got, and you start moving forward. LA is just sharing here. When I lost my older child, I was a good year at it. I also began drinking hard. I had to do, now remember in LA, I did mention we're supposed to stay away from ice because that stuff's dangerous. But she began drinking hard. I had to decide to live again and put the alcohol up. I have realized since I prolonged the pain of that longer than I needed to by drinking. I'm sober now for nearly 40 years. That puts us both in the same boat. Can you imagine the amount of damage we could have done if we'd have known each other back then? Back 40 years ago, I was drinking heavily. As in, if it had alcohol in it, I was drinking it. Well, no, that's not true. I only drank legal and actual alcohol. We had a guy I used to know, we called him the Aquavelva Man. Because sad to say, he needed alcohol so badly, he would drink Aquavelva aftershave. Now, the neat part about it is you've got a choice. We're coming up on the end of 2024. Okay, maybe things haven't gone the way you desired them to. Okay, maybe you've had a bunch of losses. Maybe there's things that have created a problem. No, I found out LA. LA goes, OMG, yes, we'd have burned down the world. Probably. If I'd have known a couple of people back then, that's not entirely a surprise. I know one guy, when he was in that age bracket, he knew how to build, he had literally figured out how to build a nuke. Okay. Knew another chap that it was great. He loved lighting fires. We could have had a lot of fun. A lot of damage, but a lot of fun. But you've got a choice. We're hitting the end of 2024 here. Now, some of you are going to be going, thank heavens the year is over. What are you going to do next year to make your life better than it was this year? Now, I'll tell you, my life this year has been a shambles. I found out only within the last month, really. I talked to you about the gaming crew that I worked with. Okay. And, that I used to play Dungeons and Dragons with and Aftermath and that sort of thing. Turns out, my attachment to them was far greater than their attachment to me. I've had to, thus far, therefore, in the last couple of weeks, really cut all of that loose. The restaurant that I thought I had a connection with people, I don't. Okay, so I've had to come to the conclusion, okay, I'm going into the new year, into 2025, with a whole lot less stuff behind me because I'm just not taking it. Now, I could sit here and go, oh, woe is me, my world is a shambles. Eternity, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You've got a choice. As the year comes to a close, you've got the choice of letting it drag you down, letting it make you feel worse or encouraging you to feel worse. Or you can look at the promise of a new day. Now, of course, the rational question is, who here would rather look to the promise of a new day and see what you can do to change your life and thereby, quite literally by accident or by side effect, the lives of those people that you come in contact with? Mourning is a necessary and normal period. And by the way, I'm going to go sideways on you a little here because I keep getting told, because we're talking about death and mourning and all of this, people keep telling me humans are the only ones that fear death. Okay? I call bogus on that. Granted, humans may well be, in the way humans think, I'll tell you they're not accurate on this, but that's okay. Humans may be the only ones that dwell on what happens when you die. Okay, but I will tell you, watch any picture, or if you have an animal, if you've got more than one animal, more than one pet, watch the animals. They will go into mourning when somebody dies. They will go into depression. if they lose their favorite toy. Okay, this is a universal thing. I've seen plants go into mourning because another one died. Okay, if it has life, okay, if it has life, it will suffer a mourning, or it will suffer mourning, it will suffer depression, it will suffer loss. And if you really look at the animals in the wild, okay, they don't fear death. Well, if they don't fear death, why in tarnation would a deer run like the flaming wind to get away from a lion? Is it because he just wants a little exercise before he dies? I'm thinking he's not interested in the dying thing. Mourning boils down to a necessary step. It could be a day, it could be a minute or two, it could be an hour or two, could be a decade or two. No one but you has the authority to go, you've mourned long enough. Now, there will be those of you that have people that come up and go, okay, let's get you up and mobile. Yes, you suffered a terrible loss. No, we can't do anything about it, but let's get you back on your feet. Okay, now that is one of the reasons why I'm focusing on the world the way I am at this point. Like I've told you, I'm not going to shut the stream down, but we are going to be going through some changes. One of the things we have to realize is when you suffer a loss, even if it is simply the loss of an item, you'll go through a period, once you hit it, you'll go through the normal issue of, number one, what I do with it. You get the confusion. Then you get the anger. More often than not, the anger is directed at you, but it might be directed at somebody else. Then internally, you'll go through the grief, and that will manifest in an external expression of mourning. Okay, it is a physical expression of that sense of loss. But that's where you now have the dominant question you can deal with. Are you going to stay focusing on what you lost, or are you going to focus on what joy that item used to bring, and where are you going to move to from here? You know, this is why I figure funerals in the Western world are, oh, let's all talk about, let's all dress in black, and let's all talk about the fact that we lost this individual, and, you know, let's just get really depressing. Or really depressed, take your pick. I like the Irish method. Hey, this guy died, or this girl died. That's a terrible thing. Let's say our goodbyes, let's cry, and then let's get ourselves absolutely blitzed. But understand, in an Irish wake, they are not drinking to forget. They're drinking to loosen up. And yes, alcohol will help you do that. Okay, no, I'm not encouraging you to go out and get blitzed every time somebody dies. Although that's so much better than getting just depressed. At least in my opinion. Now, the neat part about it is you've got a choice to make. Are you going to dwell on what was and what you no longer have? Or are you going to look at it and go, okay, my plate is now clear. Now I can put more things on it. Now I can build a life to enhance, to build on what that person brought to me, what they showed me. And am I going to make that count and build on that and show the world that, yes, I went through a mess, but I'm going to land on my feet. Okay, and I'm going to credit these people. I will tell you, politely put, whatever you do, guys, if this doesn't apply to you, don't take it on. Now, that's going to fall on deaf ears for the most part. Okay, but because of what I've gone through, I had to bury the idea of trust for the most part. There are very few people on this planet that I will tell you right off the bat They open their mouth. I'm going to take it at face value that what they're telling me is honest. Okay. Two of my moderators I can say for absolute certainty. Okay. LA Moon and Storm. I know full well if I ask them a question, whatever they tell me is going to be dead on the money. It's going to be, this is the way I see it. Okay. Now, that is no offense meant to anybody else. But you got to remember, I've spent hours, I've actually spent weeks with LA and Storm. Yeah, no doubt there. No doubt there, Robert. Hey, carry on. No, I'll ask you that on a different day. But Robert's just going, I'll land on my foot. And in Robert's case, that makes absolute sense. But you have a choice. When you suffer a loss, you can get depressed. Or you can go, okay, I've lost this. I'm not dragging it around. I don't have it now. Time to cut it loose. Okay, this is what I've had to do with all of the gamers I used to game with. None of them respond. Okay, so I've had to take a look at that and go, forget it, it's over. My own family I've had to do the same thing with. Okay, and so many people that I thought I had a connection with. You may well be going through the same thing. Okay, but you've got a choice. You can either sit down, curl up in a corner, hide your head from the world, and pray that everybody leaves you alone. With 8 billion people on the planet, I'm thinking this may not work as well as you might like. So we have to realize your method of mourning, it has to be right for you. Myself, I've finally gotten to a point now, it's taken 2 years to get through it. Okay, you may not know, but the last 2 years I've been fighting pretty severe depression. In spite of the fact we've got positive perspectives, the newsletter up and running, and positive perceptions. This whole stream. Okay, yes, I talk about being positive. And I absolutely encourage it. But I will tell you, if you're suffering a loss, if you're at a point where you're not making it home for Christmas, you're not making it home for New Year's, this may well hit you sideways. Give yourself permission to feel that loss, but find a way to compensate. Now, maybe you can't get home for Christmas. Okay, and maybe that's going to hit you really backwards. Now, we're taught, send an email, send a text message. I'm telling you, throw that idea out the window, if at all possible. Pick up the phone. This funny little thing, there's lots of them all over the place. Don't bother texting, phone. The voice will carry the emotion so much better. Okay, one of the things that I have to do, LA goes, I love the Irish, celebrate the life. Granted, the body is there at the party, but what the hey? Well, I'm warning you, don't go giving the corpse a drink. Now, that's a bad idea. I remember going to an open, I was asked to come to a really good friend of mine's open casket funeral. And everybody was in tears. Well, except me. They were all in tears. I'm sitting there. And the person asked me to come for moral support. Turned around and she goes, Keith, aren't you upset? Aren't you, unhappy that so-and-so is gone? I looked at her and I went, gone? He's sitting right over there on the other end of the pew. She stops, looks at me and goes, of all the people I asked to come for moral support, I had to pick you. It depends on how you look at what you're going through. Mourning is a normal process. So do your best not to beat yourself up over not doing things, over not getting over and just getting on with life. Okay? It sometimes takes years. More often than not, if you've got a really good friend, and I pray you have a lot of friends. I really do. If you've got a really good friend and you're going into a slump, that friend will almost certainly step in and go, okay, let's pull you off the floor. Let's get you out, get you out mobile. And I encourage you to do the same thing for the people that you know. Or for that matter, as I tend to do, you see somebody hurting, reach out to them. If they're hurting in public, you can bet, in a sense, they are asking for help. They may not know this. Okay, now, I will tell you, there's an old saying that goes, misery loves company. Well, I'm telling you, the number of people I know of, when they're miserable, their usual tendency is to pull into a hole in the wall and just hide. They don't tend to rush out to see people. Robert goes, my uncle's funeral, he was sitting next to me asking why the white guy talking at the podium had cornrows in his hair. Yeah. The funny thing is, what you got to remember about people when they pass, what's happened is the physical body has died. Now, many of you have had a vehicle that died. You got out of the vehicle, walked around for a bit until you bought a new one. Okay, maybe you scouted out a new vehicle first. But ultimately, when a body dies, that's what happens. The physical body collapses. The soul, the person, gets up, walks out, goes around until it finds a new body, and then starts over. Okay, same thing with you. You have a choice of sitting in the dark and crying and just holding your knees and rocking back and forth. You do have that option. It is my recommendation that you do that for a little bit, and as soon as possible, reach out to somebody. It doesn't even matter if you're just desiring to go for coffee, to just sit and drink coffee and talk or not talk. The physical company of somebody, no matter what you've lost, makes it easier for people to cope. And this is just one of those methods of coping with the problem. Okay, now I had a lot of goals last year, and I beat myself up pretty black and blue because I didn't attain the ones I'd aimed for. But again, and we're going to get into all of that over the next couple of days here, when we're looking at what you have not accomplished, what you've lost, maybe it's a social connection that is no longer viable. Okay, the time has come to literally look in the mirror and go, okay, where am I standing now, and where do I go from here? I can't tell you how many people I've talked to. They lose somebody. Now, this one really got me. This one person I knew, she'd lost her job. It was her own doing. Okay, but she lost her job because she got fired. Of all the bizarre things to do, she went and quit her other job. I'm not sure what the purpose was, but I do know what the outcome was. I will tell you, when you're in mourning, it will be very tempting in all likelihood to try and buy your way out of it, to go out and buy something to help yourself feel better. I'm going to caution you, that doesn't work as well as you might think. Okay, the reality of it is you have a major choice. As 2024 comes to a close, okay, it is becoming time to turn around and go, I'm moving forward. Okay, I cannot do anything about what's gone on behind. Now, I take a look at this neat little thing. I've shown you this before. I actually just folded it up. This is where I've been tracking my sleep. Okay. Now, I've always held that you have to be getting to be healthy for most adults. For most healthy adults, this applies. You may not think it does, but this is based on, like I said, over 100,000 clients. Most healthy adults can get away quite comfortably on 6 hours of sleep a night. As it turned out, I have managed that throughout the year. Okay, some days it's been a lot less, but overall, as of the end of November, I am still at under 6 hours a night. I'm just aiming now to get into 6 hours at a run instead of 2 hours, an hour here, another 3 there. It just completely screws up the rhythm. But the biggest thing we have to keep in mind, I do believe, is the fact that mourning is normal. And one of the best ways I ever found to cope with it is literally write your feelings out on paper. Okay? Put them together, because by writing them down, even if you're writing about depressing things, writing them down gets that negative energy out of your body. And that will help lighten your spirit. The other thing you do in conjunction with that is you turn around and find the fastest dance-paced music you can find. Okay? Crank it as high as socially acceptable and let it run in the background. Again, this is a way of coping with the depression, with the mourning. Okay? Again, yes, have a party. If you've lost somebody and you decide to have a wake, absolutely do so. Just be aware. Too much alcohol, hangover. I don't know about you, but I was lucky I didn't get hangovers. When I was drinking heavily, I didn't sober up. No hangover. But it does work to help relax you. Unfortunately, it knocks out your train and learn inhibitors as well. So where you're looking at mourning, it's a question of finding things. Maybe your mind works in such a way that sitting down and having a game of chess with somebody is a way for you to cope. Whatever coping mechanism works, put it to use to take your mind off the loss. And yeah, I realize, lose a child, lose a parent, lose a partner, lose anybody. It's hard to take your mind away from that. Okay. Now, I was reading today on Facebook, and they asked a very simple question. They said, what is the hardest loss to deal with? Now, I am going to give you the answer, but I am curious, what is the hardest loss for anybody to actually deal with? And you start that off sort of by the loss of an individual, the loss of an item, the loss of an ability. In your eyes, what's the hardest loss to deal with? Actually, my apologies. The way they put it was, what is the hardest death to deal with? Because, of course, most of the stuff on the internet that talks about mourning, they're talking about losing an individual. Somebody passed away. So, any idea what the hardest death is to deal with or to cope with? I will give you my answer in a little bit. But again, it boils down to this. When you're going through that, the story, now that's one I didn't actually pick up with. The storm goes, the death of your personal dream. I had a goal, and I can relate to that all too well. It just didn't die. Rachel goes, losing a child. Okay. And I will tell you, I missed the one of the death of a personal dream. Well done on that, Storm. Rachel goes, losing a child. LA says, I believe losing my mother was hardest. Okay. Now I will tell you, according to the internet, the hardest death to deal with is losing a child. But I found one even harder. Okay. This one I can relate to absolutely perfectly. Most of you won't be able to. But I will tell you, your own death is even harder to cope with than any other death on the market. But the one thing where it comes to the death of when you lose a child, when you lose your mother, when you lose a physical person, yeah, sad to say, guys, they have passed away. That's just the end of that. Okay. Now, reincarnation is another issue we'll get into again at a later date. But when we have the death of your personal dream, there is something to consider here. Maybe your dream was to accomplish this one task by the time you're 20. You get to 20 and you're not at that point. So now you're looking at it going, well, I didn't make my dream. Very true. But what you got to remember is although you will not make it by the time you're 20, I had a client that desired to be a doctor when she got out of school. That was her goal. Now, that would have meant by the time she was 26, she'd have been a full-blown doctor. Well, she got a hold of me at 52 and told me that she had this dream of being a doctor. I worked with her for the next 8 years, and she got her MD, full doctorate, at 60 years old. So much as you may not be able to attain your personal dream, if it is at all physically possible, you may simply be able to attain it at a later date. There are certain cases where that dream becomes completely impossible to reach. Okay, like I at one point had a dream of being a truck driver, and then we discovered my sense of direction just wasn't going to work, and a destroyed right leg completely wrote it off. I could like to be a truck driver all I'd like. Ain't gonna happen. Fortunately, I'm in luck there. I don't have room in my apartment for a semi anyway. But when we are talking about mourning, we are talking about taking a look at what you've lost and finding a way to move forward while hanging on to the joy that thing used to give you or that person used to bring you. Okay? Many times, especially if you lose somebody, you have not capitalized or not made the most of the opportunity when they were here. And once they're gone, you can no longer make the most of that opportunity in a physical sense. Okay, are you likely to have regrets in life? I'd be more concerned if you didn't. Kind of makes you borderline sociopathic, I think. But when we are looking at mourning, take a look at what you feel you've lost. Ask yourself, is there any way, albeit later than intended, of attaining that goal? If there is, I strongly encourage you to get off your tail and make it happen. If it turns out you cannot do it, then accept the fact you can't and start focusing on the things you can accomplish. Let me just call something up here. Let's minimize that. And where are we here? Language. There we are. Okay. Now, I am actually putting a booklet together with this. And again, the reality is the way I cope with things is I write. Okay. Now, and this is just a minor sidetrack here. But these are a couple of words that can be replaced. Okay. Okay. They are very self-debilitating or self-deceiving. always, can't, if, impossible, need, never, try, want. Okay, all of these are words that are self-debilitating. Okay, many times you'll look at the loss of something and go, I don't know how to deal with this. I just can't move on. And the reality is you can. The problem is many people won't. Okay. And, somebody's going to yell at me, well, it hurts too much. It probably does. Okay. But the reality is mourning is a matter of will. Okay. You don't have to believe me, by the way. That's the good news. The bad news is I didn't hang up on you. No. But the fact of the matter is, when you reach that point where you're going, I can't go any further. Okay, first rule of thumb, add an O to the end of the word. I can too go further. Would that person desire you to let everything go? Maybe you lost a pet that was always there for you. Okay, and now there's this great big vacant spot in your lap where that pup used to be. Okay, I will tell you, many people say, "Oh, you lost a pet. Go out and get a new one to replace it." Bad, 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 bad idea in my eyes. And rest assured, I've seen enough people lose pets. Okay, or for that matter, children. The new one does not work well if it's got as a replacement. Give yourself permission to mourn a reasonable amount of time, but don't give up on your life in the process. The thing is, mourning is not just about somebody passing away. Mourning is about loss in general. And this is something that we have to realize. Well, it would be wise to realize. It's your choice if you're going to permit yourself to sink into an absolute pit, into an absolute pit of despair, or are you going to either reach out to those close to you or accept a hand up when they reach out to you? Okay, understand, friends tend to reach out to help friends. Okay, and the neat part about it is when you look at friendship, in my eyes, a friend is not the person that is just there when you're having a good time. Okay, they're great people, don't get me wrong. But a real friend will be there when you're at your worst. Come in and help pick you up. Now, I can't tell you how many people that I've had here. Now, do I have a lot of friends? Frankly, no. Okay. Do I appreciate the well wishes and the encouragement I get from you guys? Absolutely. Okay. I honestly do not recall the words to really say thank you in the right way. But I will tell you, the amount of people that I've lost that I thought were close, in my sad realization, turned out they weren't. Okay. And there is no doubt that someday I should probably learn how to speak a little bit more acceptably. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Political correctness, not my strong suit. Something to do with the fact that when I'm dealing with things, when somebody asks me a question, I just go, there's the answer. Now, whether somebody likes the answer or not is not what I focus on. It's whether or not I'm being honest. Because the reality is this. One of the things that we really might desire to mourn as a society is humanity and common sense, both of which seem to be dying. LA goes, I waited for 2 years to decide to acquire a new dog. I had my girl for 20 years. I woke up one day and told Storm my dog is at the pound. I need to go get her. Sure enough, there was Dobie. And Dobie is a riot. He really is. I still think he has too much caffeine, though. you might want to give him another cup. See if that slows him down. I hear if you overload on caffeine, it'll knock you out. My apologies, that's not Dobby, that's pronounced Dobby. But the fact is, when you've had a loss, bringing a replacement in right away is not a good idea. Even if you've had a relationship that collapsed, go out and find a new relationship right away. This is just a flat out bad idea. When my marriage ended, I took 2 years myself before I let anybody close enough to me to actually start a new one. That, by the way, is not the person I'm now engaged to. But we have a choice. You can drag mourning out, or you can drag celebration out. Your call. If you don't know how to move forward, absolutely. If this hasn't helped, drop me a line. Okay. The reality is, if you go to the Buy Me a Coffee link at the top of the stream, at the top of the chat room, which is literally buymeacoffee.com/innervoicej. Okay. Drop me on when you get on there, you'll find a way to get a hold of me for consulting and for any of the books I've got available. And yes, by the way, I am going to be next year. I've already found a place to do it. We will be looking into t-shirts, cups, and the like that will all be coming straight for us. That'll end up on that Buy Me a Coffee site. Okay. I've decided let's face it. I opened Inner Voice Enterprises in 2007. But because of the fact I didn't have any requirement for it, I didn't do a whole lot with it. I've been sitting on it. Now, I could berate myself for that. I could say, hey, I wasted 15 years. Okay? I didn't waste 15 years. It took 15 years to get to where I am. Now we're starting to move forward. Okay? And I will tell you, we are going to push things to turn all of this around. Okay? Much of the way I look at things is different than most. Absolutely. And I could, I've literally spent years mourning about and grieving the fact I couldn't find a way to fit in. Okay. One of the things we got to realize here is I spent all that time trying to figure out how to fit in. My fiance turned around a few years back and goes, Keith, why are you trying so hard to fit in? You never have before. And it finally sank in, so I'm no longer doing that. But with that in mind, it's time to take the mourning and take this whole concept of what are you hanging on to the loss for? Is there a reason for it? If it is not bringing you joy, you might desire to let it go. Okay? And for those of you that are thinking that way, oh, this real pain in the neck person, they died. Yeah, let's throw a party. They're gone. You didn't have to deal with them. Well, maybe you did. But the fact of the matter is, that person may have had somebody else around them that they actually got along with. Okay? So, you go back to when I was a child. Okay? There was a song, I'm not going to terrify you by singing it, but the words were very simple. Don't ever laugh when a hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. And it's a very long little drawn out. I don't know who the author was. Mind you, I was never told who the author was. But when somebody else is suffering a loss, it may seem tiny to you. It may seem absolutely a waste of effort. To the person suffering the loss, this is a massive problem in many cases. Okay? So, I really encourage you to look at when somebody else is going through a loss. Look at it from their eyes. Now, this may be a very difficult thing to do. I'm not saying it's easy by any stretch. I can say it's easy, because watch this. It's easy. Doesn't make it easy. Now, again, you don't have to believe what I'm telling you. Okay? This is the way I see it, and much of what I see is very different from many people. But I will encourage you, put the negative past to rest. Give yourself permission to mourn the loss of whatever it was. And absolutely, as we get to the end of 2024 here, take a look at the things you accomplished. Absolutely look at the ones you didn't make. You had a list of goals that you were trying to work on. Maybe they weren't New Year's resolutions. Maybe these were simply things that you came across. Oh, I desire to get this done. Many of them you didn't get done. Your call. You can focus on what you didn't get done or go, hey, I managed to accomplish this. Okay. I saw somebody the other day get absolutely tickled pink when they figured out how to fill a salt shaker on their own. Now, I will tell you, for me, this is a massive accomplishment for them. For you, being able to see somebody do that may not matter a whole lot. How much of an impact can that have on your life? On yours, maybe none, maybe nothing. On theirs, it can be the difference between self-efficiency and self-reliance and self-reliance and dependence. Now, when we are looking at mourning, okay, you get to pick how you're going to do it. I will tell you, if we take a look at habit and at the idea of habit, forming and breaking them, mourning falls into the same category. In case you're looking for a time frame, it takes an average of 21 days to form a habit or to break it. Therefore, if you're in mourning for the loss of something, if it runs longer than 21 days, you may be bridging the gap and traveling from mourning into the habit of mourning. This is one time frame I can give you that seems to apply. Just a thought. Okay, very important thing to keep in mind when you're looking at the future. Okay, you can mourn what you didn't do. You can berate yourself, call yourself any number of names you'd like. Okay, I'm lucky I got a pretty wide vocabulary. But what we have to realize, well, it's wise to realize that when you're dealing with moving forward, mourning is kind of like having an anchor around your neck. Grief falls under the same category, under the same picture. The only difference between the two seems to be that grief is internalized, mourning is externalized. Okay, so if you're mourning, other people will very, very clearly see it. Okay, if they're paying attention at all. If you're suffering from severe grief, it may turn into depression without you even realizing it. And this is why I say, if you're still holding on to it after 21 days, or as you near 21 days, very important to find a way to break out of it. Now, maybe that just means talking to somebody. And you are right. Talking to somebody about a loss won't make the loss go away. Okay? But it may help make it easier to cope with it. This is just one of those things we got to look at. Okay? You know the old saying, together we stand, divided we fall. Well, it's the same problem if you're going through a severe loss. If you're on your own, you're going to go around in circles in all likelihood. This is not going to end well. You'll get dizzy. But if you can talk to a few people, sometimes this means find a counselor, sometimes find a stranger, sometimes find a friend, and sometimes even find family. But find somebody to share your grief with, to share your loss with, even if it is just to talk about it so you can hear yourself talk. It does help. Okay, Lord knows I bawled a lot in my life. Net result, stroke. Bad idea. Bottling the mourning, hanging on to it, and continuing to mourn is increasing the pressure in your chest. It's increasing the pressure in your head. This is a good way to create a problem for yourself, and highly encourage not to hang on to it. Yeah. Storm goes, respect is what we operate on here, Serpent. It's what we operate on here. Serpent, have a nice day. In other words, ultimately, oh, there we are. Robert, when we look at that, I always find it fascinating. You can buy into the negative, and lots of people are drawn to it. Okay, this may be why they say that misery loves company. Mourning is a form of misery, usually self-inflicted, by the way. And Robert White goes, it might be Aussie humor, but there's a song by Angel down here called "Am I Ever Gonna See Your Face Again?" There's a version with a few expletives included that may be a form of mourning. Well, the reality of it is this. Expletives are, in my opinion, I don't use them a lot unless I'm mad. But expletives are just another language. That's all, in my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong. I certainly don't like being sworn at, but I don't have any problem with the language itself. I just don't use it much. But the reality is, many people, when they go into mourning, they literally, as the song kind of insinuates, they cover their head. Don't look at me. I look terrible. I'm not feeling well. And granted, this is more a female trait than male, but it is not relegated only to females. Okay, most women, especially if they're in a funk, if they're mourning something, most of them will still worry about their appearance. Okay, that may sound stereotypical, but unfortunately, it's stereotypical based on well over 100,000 clients. Okay, and the reality is this: guys are feeling down and dump, and if they're going to go out of the house because they have to, they don't worry about whether their hair is combed. On the whole, there are some of you out there that do. Okay, your clothes may not be properly put on. Okay, or properly kept. Fortunately, guys still tend to put both arms in the proper sleeves on a shirt, and very seldom actually put them on backwards. Tell you the reality there is, if you put them on backwards, they don't fit well. Not in most cases. But it's up to you how you're going to deal with it. Are you going to continue looking at the things you didn't accomplish? Or are you going to, number one, celebrate the things that you have accomplished, and then find a way, if at all possible, to attain the goals that you didn't get done? I'll tell you, I had a lot of goals that I intended to get done before the end of 2024 that I'm not going to make. Okay. One of those neat little goals, I didn't know how long it was going to take, was this funny little thing. I'm now over halfway through it. Like I said, I told my father I would read the Bible cover to cover. Okay. I told him I would. I'm now over halfway through it. And I'll tell you, that's a whole different topic. Of course, this one I'm now I'm guessing a little over 10% through. That's Game of Thrones, the first book. Yeah, I'm about a decade or two late, but I'm getting to it. You know, again, you can take a look at what you didn't get accomplished or at the people you lost. Back in grade 10, I lost a very good friend of mine in a drunk driving accident. Okay. And, the thing that hit me bad with it was I told her before the party, because she was only in grade 10. She went to a grad party with a couple of other people. And I warned her, don't get into a car with a drunk driver. Okay. Unfortunately, she did not listen. Okay. For years, I went, what could I have done to stop her from getting into that car? Because I wasn't at the party. Right. I still beat myself black and blue because she happened to be the sister of a good friend of mine. But I had warned her, and you undoubtedly have warned people, don't do that. They turned around, ignored you, and dug themselves into a hole. Preferably not as literally as what mine did. Okay? But I spent years beating myself black and blue over not getting her to avoid that problem. Okay? I'm encouraging you to let go of the things that you can no longer change. Now, you remember that neat little serenity prayer. And I don't care if you call it God, Allah, myself, my higher entity, source, use whatever name you choose. I'm lazy. 3 letters, 1 syllable. God, grant me the strength to change the things I can. The courage. Grant me the courage to change the things I can. The strength to accept the things I cannot change. And the wisdom to know the difference. Now I've done my best to do that. Of course, I keep asking him to get a filter on my mouth, and he's yet to fulfill that one for me. Now I could get depressed about that and go, I've really got to change that. I keep saying that it might be an idea, and then I go, yeah, but it's too much effort. And this way I don't have to remember what I said, which is a good thing. One of the most difficult things you're going to run into in life is figuring out when to let go of that mourning period. How long is long enough? There is no actual time for it. Okay, I cannot tell you you've mourned long enough. I will tell you that bearing in mind the way of building a habit, 21 days, if you're getting to that point and you're still hanging on to it, it might be time to look for a way to get around it. Lest it becomes an actual habit. And yes, you can get into the habit of mourning. I got into the habit of spending money to help myself feel better or feel more successful. Really, really, really bad, stupid idea. I call it stupid because I knew better and did it anyway. Okay. The one thing that the fight I've been going through has worked well with is it got me to break that habit. Okay, it absolutely did. It's amazing if you don't have enough money to keep a roof over your head, you don't tend to go out as much. Something about desiring to have a roof over my head to come home to. Now, with all of this in mind, you gotta look at the reality of life. You are going to suffer losses. There are going to be points where mourning is appropriate. Let's face it. You lose a partner, a child, a parent, a family member, you're going to feel bad. And bear in mind, when I look at family member, those funny little things called cats, dogs, birds, fish, you get it? Those are all family. Okay. When I had my stroke, I had a really good friend in the way of a croton, which, by the way, a croton is a plant. Okay. But he died while I was in the hospital because, oddly enough, my kids were actually more worried about whether I was coming out of the hospital than whether they watered a plant. I can't exactly blame them for it. Well, I guess I could. Yeah. And then he goes, I've asked God to do stuff I'm responsible for. His answer has always been free will. Absolutely. And this is what I mean. You have the choice to continue mourning, to continue holding on to that loss, to what could have been. Okay. Or you can take a look at it and go, okay, I don't have that anymore. I'm going to put that aside and get something else filled in. Because there are a few things that are worse than having a hole in your heart. And I don't mean the physical one. Okay. But if you're feeling a loss, if you're feeling something missing, fill it with something else. Okay. I remember working under a car with a friend of mine one day. He had a TR7, and he took the idea of filling that hole with something else quite literally. One of the lights wouldn't go up or down; it wouldn't move. So he's under there working on it. All of a sudden, it let go, and it punched a hole in his hand. Well, needless to say, he said a couple of not so polite things, and he carries on working. All of a sudden, he had grease all over the finger that was bleeding. He looks at it and goes, "Oh, well, that solved that." He found something to fill that hole with. Not necessarily the most sanitary thing to fill the hole with, but it did work. Where we are right now, as 2024 comes to a close, is we look back over the months of the past year. What losses have you had? Now, one of the greatest losses I had was I lost my girlfriend about a month ago now. No, just a couple of weeks ago, I ended up losing my girlfriend. Okay, now I could mourn the loss of my girlfriend, but given that my girlfriend became my fiance, I'm going to celebrate the fact that I've got a fiance, not lost a girlfriend. And you guys have the same option. Whatever you lost, was it a benefit to you? I give you all kinds of examples of it. The question you got to look at is, what can I do? Not what is the government going to do to help me feel better? Are these friends going to do? Or what is anybody going to do? What can you do to move forward from that sense of loss, to drag yourself out of that pit of mourning? Okay, it's your call. Absolutely reach out to the people around you. Somebody undoubtedly will have a rope to pull you to safety or a ladder to help you up. Okay, now I see this consistently. I was looking at Facebook today. Okay, I was looking at Facebook today, and I saw they had filmed this polar bear carrying a seal to a fishing boat to get the seal helped. Now, if natural predators and prey can help each other, why will people not help people? Those around you, I'm certain, if you've got friends around you, they will help you deal with your loss. Okay? Ultimately, you're the one that's going to have to make the decision. And this, I just noticed it there, so I'm just going to get up and get it and show you something, which is a complete sidetrack. I never could figure out what the heck was going on with this. It might give you an idea of how I take care of stuff. Okay. This was my brother's teddy bear from back in the 50s. I only just found out he is likely stuffed with sawdust instead of cotton or anything else. Oh, great, Joe. Glad you're still here. Joe's just going, I'm still listening, just not in chat. Every time I look at this was my older brother's stuffy. I ended up with it. I don't know how I ended up with it, but I did. Again, hanging on to the past is not a bad thing per se. Okay, but if it's bringing you down, you can look at it and go, like with my brother when he passed, I could look at it and go, I lost him. I didn't actually build the rapport I should have in the last years. I could berate myself for that, or I can look at it and go, what did he teach me, and how can I move forward with it? Okay, how can I utilize that to make my life better? Oh, that's what that says. Okay, mourning is literally a choice. Okay, it is literally a choice of what you're going to do or how you're going to work with it. What you've got to decide is, are you going to stay in that state of mind, or are you going to find a new way? And yeah, in case you haven't noticed, guys, 61 years old, I still have stuffies on my bed. So the reality is, and that's the other thing we got to look at. So many people I talk to go, I'm an adult and I just don't play anymore. Guys, and girls, I got told the other day, it's no longer acceptable to refer to a group of people as guys because somebody's going to get upset. Probably will. I'm over it. Every one of you, I don't care how old you are, you're still a child. Okay? You had a mother and a father. Okay? Therefore, you're still a child. It's that simple. So, go back, reinvent yourself, have your childhood fun. I will warn you though, as an adult, throwing yourself on the floor in the middle of a grocery store and throwing a fit may not be the best way to make a good impression, although it will get attention. What I'm looking at now is I'm assessing what went on in 2024 and going, what can I do to make things better? Not just for me, but absolutely, that's where my focus is. Okay, but the reality is that I intend on guiding people through the depressing side of, 2024 is gone. How do we move forward? It's time to forge a solid plan and really help each and every one of you that's willing to get on board and willing to put the tools to use. I could do like I've done for a lot of months. I could mourn the fact that we don't have the turnout that I would like. Okay. Or I can go, okay, we've still got a number of people here that have told me very clearly what you're doing works. Now I can look at the ones that haven't said that and go, I'm not getting the recognition, I'm not getting the turnout, and the world is in trouble. Well, the world is in trouble. Okay. But as the saying goes, every little bit helps. Now, if you're suffering from a loss, okay, you may not be able to turn yourself around right away, but even a moment or two a day will help. Because when you focus on that, when you focus on those little successes, what happens is they become more and more frequent, and then they get longer and longer periods. Eventually, by action, by your own action, what you're going to find is that mourning period comes to a close. Joanne, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The neat part about it is we're at a time, there's an old saying that goes, the world is our oyster. Okay, now, I'm telling you, I like oysters, not impressed with the world. So, I mean, there's a little bit of a flip there. But what we have to look at, or what is advisable, when I say we, I do mean myself and each and every one of you. Joanne goes, I'm caring for my 95-year-old mom and grieving the eventual loss of her, my best friend. Absolutely. And, really, I hope it's a number of years premature. But my sympathies for what you're going through. I've lost both my parents. Okay, and I really don't know where they are. I know they got cremated. I've lost both of them and two of my brothers. But losing a parent, yeah, absolutely. Now, the thing is, Joanne, like so many of you, you've got an impending loss coming up. Yes, absolutely grieving grieving that loss is normal. But what we got to remember is if you celebrate the time, if you focus on celebrating the available time, and I know you're doing this, Joanne, when you celebrate the remaining time you've got with them, okay, you will find that it makes the passing a little easier to cope with. I was lucky when my grandmother passed away. At 91 years old, she was still cutting, no, she was 90. She was still cutting a rug at my first wife's and my wedding. At my first wedding. My grandmother at 95 was still dancing. Which to me was fantastic. Sorry, at 90. 95, she still had a grip like a steel vice. But when we're dealing with this whole issue of is it right to mourn? Is there an actual time, duration that is permissible? Number one, mourning and grieving across the globe. Animals, plants, all of them. Joanne's just saying, losing my little family. Daughter and grandson have to stay close to a strange father of child. I have to move 3.5 hours away. Yeah, that's going to be a rough one. I'm lucky, But no, something like that, when you have to leave people behind, unfortunately, it's a problem. Oh, that is unfortunate, Joanne. The best I can tell you there, especially at her age, is, and you don't need me telling you this, absolutely, I hope she has as many clear days as possible, okay, before she goes. Because that's a rough one. I've known a lot of people over the years who have suffered with it. But that is, I will tell you, from her standpoint, your being there is the best thing that she could be experienced at this point. She probably doesn't know how to convey that. But I will tell you, there is no doubt that she appreciates the sacrifice you're making. I look at it this way. She took care of you when you were tiny. Okay. She took care of you when you were tiny. Now the roles have reversed. And let's face it, I know you're not complaining that you have to take time. I know you're not complaining about the effort. This just goes to show what kind of a decent person you are. Okay, give yourself a pat on the back, and if you would accept a pat on the back from me. Okay, this is what it means to take care of each other. Okay, because we are literally, everything is connected. Now, we do have the choice of dwelling on what we are losing, dwelling on what we didn't accomplish. Okay, I could look at things of my own that I'm going through and beat myself black and blue. Or I can turn around and go, nope, this is the way I am, so I'm going to make the most of it. you've got the same option. You've got the same choice. You can either dwell on the things that have not gone well, or you can focus on the ones that have gone well and see if there's any way at all on capitalizing on some of the other things. Now, odd question, this is literally directly to you, Joanne. If your mom is capable, and I don't know if she is, with advanced dementia, it might be a problem. If she ever has a solid enough day to just play a game of fish with her, I'll tell you her eyes are likely going to light up. Okay, assuming you know what the game of fish is, i.e. cards. Just those little things you used to do when you were tiny. She may have a solid memory of those, more so than as you're an adult. Just a thought. But this is why I say it's time to get focused on what's going on. Now, you can focus on how much you've lost in the last year. And I mean, all of you can. What you lost, what you didn't get accomplished, what you wish you had gotten accomplished. You can do all of that. Or you can focus on something else. Okay? I'm not the one to tell you whether what you're going through is a viable thing to mourn. It's your life. You're the one that's dealing with it. All I can do to give you a time frame per se is if this mourning has taken longer than has taken close to the 21-day mark, I encourage you to find somebody to help you break away from it. Yep. Gee, that sounds like a standard old house. No heat, hard to shut the water off. We had a problem with our house. You couldn't shut the water off. That caused a lot of problems. But when you take a look at the childhood, your mom may well remember those more than other times. I know that applies to other people as they get older, and for that matter, even ones that aren't. Myself, I remember way too much of my childhood. Unfortunately, a lot of it was not pleasant. But I'm not dwelling on that. I'm looking at where I am now going, okay, I know what it's like to go through bullying. I know what it's like to go through panic. I'm not going there anymore. It's just not my way. I'm just no longer interested. Just a thought, Joanne, just popped into my head. When you're talking to your mom, if she's having a lucid memory, a lucid time, bring up, even if it was a complicated problem, especially if it was an enjoyable event. Talk about these events from your youth. Okay, you're likely to see a much greater much greater sense of memory. Okay, with her, you might even get a smile out of it. The nice part about it is we have absolutely limited time on this planet. Okay, the one thing everybody on Earth has in common, we all die. Okay, we all will suffer loss. We all will suffer pain. But we also all suffer or also enjoy triumph, celebration, accomplishment. Okay, now we've got a choice. Look at the negative or look at the positive. Your call. Okay, realistically, it is time to take a look at mourning and go, okay, I've been mourning this. Clearly, it can't come back. Okay, for instance, like I know some people, they've got a favorite car they had for the longest time, and it finally petered out. It can't be repaired anymore. So, yes, it was a lot of fun, but time to let it go. And this is the whole thing. The last couple of weeks of Christmas of 2024 here. Oh, there we go. Joanne's going, okay, she has lucid moments. I had more time with her than lots of folks. She will enjoy reliving some good times. My father, when he got diagnosed at 81, he got diagnosed in March at 80 years old. This is a few years back. By September of the same year, he was gone. So we didn't have a whole lot of time. When he collapsed, he was gone. Thank you very much, LA. We are down to the 20-minute mark. We are so. We have a choice. Now, I could get caught up in all the things that went wrong. Instead, what I'm doing is going, okay, what went wrong? What went right? And is there any way that I can take the things that went wrong or that I didn't accomplish and turn it around into a positive outcome? Is there any way I can do this at all? I am bound and determined I'm going to find a way. I've decided to put certain things behind me and go, I'm moving forward. And again, guys, this funny little detail here, the list method, it works like an absolute charm. Between it and tracking my sleep, I know exactly how well I'm doing. Now, one of my goals for this year was to keep my sleep under 6 hours a night. Now, on a night-by-night basis, it didn't work. But when I look over the course of the year, I have managed it. Okay? As a matter of fact, November, I just did the calculations today. November, I averaged 5.9 hours of sleep. 5.9 hours of sleep a night for the entire month of November. Actually, it's funny you should ask that there, Joanne. I got tested for them. And I literally, no. I have an extremely hyperactive side to me. I don't slow down. But according to the shrink that I talked to, the fact that I finish the jobs that I start says I don't have ADD or ADHD. But like he said, granted, if you quit doing 15 things at one time, you get things done more quickly. So no, it's not a question of ADD. It's a much more complicated problem, but it's not something I'm looking for a cure for. What I'm looking for a cure for, as it were, is to be able to sleep 6 hours in one shot. Right now, I'll sleep 2 or 3, get up for an hour or two, and I'm still only sleeping between midnight and midnight. I'm still only sleeping 6 hours a night. But where the list comes in is because I get so many things on the go. By writing them down, I can actually get things accomplished. And, here's a neat little thing there. I'm a firm believer writing things down will help immensely. These 4 books here. Some of you guys remember these things. Well, that's what I was told, in all fairness, Joanne. Joanne goes, that wrecks your brain, not sleeping. Well, I do sleep. But here's the thing. Okay, see these 4 duotangs? These represent the last year of my using the list method. Here's the thing. I was always told that when you look at sleeping, people need 8 hours of sleep. Well, there's only 24 in a day. And I got thinking about it. Well, if you're sleeping 8 hours a day, you're sleeping a third of your life away. So just on a whim, I went, what would happen if you only sleep 4 hours a day? What would happen if you don't lose quality of life or health, which by the way is quality of life? I found out if you can sleep 4 hours a day, you gain about a month and a half living time over the course of the year. Okay, so at I gain about, at 6 hours of sleep, I'm gaining about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks of living time over the course of the year. That's what started it. I had no idea what it was going to do to me. But the reality is, I've had one cold in 25 years. I never had a flu in 25 years. And we're just not going to count the heart attacks and the one stroke. Mind you, the stroke was neat. I had the stroke, and about a month ago, I brought my blood pressure up to 220 over 140. I didn't have another stroke. I swore I wasn't doing that again. Now, I could look at, I will tell you, Joanne, I've told you guys this before. Okay. When you do this, write 3 things down on the list. Okay, make sure that they are only 15 minutes to a half hour in length. Okay, you mark those down. When you get one done, add another one to the bottom of the list. As you can see, my list gets a little carried away. Of course, all but 3 of these are done, I think. 1, 2, 3. Yep. All but 3 of them are completed. So when I get done this stream, I've got a number of things going. Oh, okay, that's not a problem there, Joanne. Just because I've got a little bit of time, just to make sure that it sets in. The easy, where do you start? Well, right wherever you are. Take a look at whatever's around you. Okay, spot one thing that is not where you feel it belongs. Put that on the list to move it. Okay, then spot number 2 and number 3. As soon as the stream gets done, 3 at a time. But remember, because what happens, Joanne, is you mark off the first 3. When you finish one, add another to the bottom of the list. Do not forget to add things like take time out for dinner, take time out for a movie. Okay, mark these down as well. It will help keep you organized. And it means when you get up in the morning, you've already got 3 things on the list ready to go. This is why I get as much done as I do. Today I've managed to get, what did I get today? So far, out of 26 on my list, I've got 23 completed. Now, if I had ADD or ADHD, I wouldn't have any of them completed because I don't rely on anybody else to tell me. Yeah, absolutely, Joanne. And that's exactly like Joanne just saying, yes, I tend to make a huge list and then freeze. Stop at 3. When you get to the 3rd one, start taking care of them. The list will still be there. And rest assured, it doesn't take much. You get something done, something else will pop up. Exactly. Now, this was, to be clear, this was shown to me by a multimillionaire. He actually carried the list in his wallet. Okay, he said, you do this, you will become successful in your eyes. You'll find the same thing, Joanne. And personally, I recommend starting tonight. While you're thinking about it, while we're on air, okay, start it. Because I will tell you, procrastination has never accomplished much in a hurry. I did think about joining a Procrastinators Anonymous list. group, but they kept postponing the meeting anyway. The neat part about it is all hindrances that all of us have are copable and or curable. Mourning, going through the mourning process is just one of many. Okay, it is a necessary one. The reality is there is very little in this world that we cannot accomplish. Okay, there are books I've got on my list. And I've got, as a matter of fact, the list of little booklets I'm working on. Finally got it organized. I don't know. I think I've got 25 in here that are already physically started. But like so often, where is it? Those are useless. This is my file folder that has all the books I'm working on. And as they get accomplished, as they get tied off, I'm going to be doing two things with them. One, getting them into print, but we are starting to look at putting PDFs out. Those will be coming out next year as I can get them racked together. It's just there's a lot of things that we're going through that people have done. Okay, there's a lot of things that have been left behind. It's time for us to take this opportunity and working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay? And yes, I am going to be posting things I'm sure are going to upset some people, but I won't be doing that deliberately here. The most difficult thing I find that anybody seems to have, the most difficult thing to do, is to look in the mirror and go, this is my shortfall. Okay, this is where I'm having problems. And this is why I say, if you're having a problem, reach out to me. Contacting me is easy. Again, if you go to the top of the stream, okay, you'll find a link to buy me a coffee. Easy to find contact information there. And buy me a coffee being buymeacoffee.com/innervoiceJ. That'll lead you right to all the books I've got, as well as my consulting. No, exactly. Excuses don't work well. Lord knows I have made way more than my fair share of excuses. Now understand, if you're suffering from PTSD, okay, absolutely, this is not qualified as an excuse. Okay, it is just the way it is, and you'll have to figure out how to cope with it. However, I am figuring out that too. Now, I gotta take a peek. Because, of course, working on stuff over here and can't read it. Wrong sheet, this one. This is my December calendar, because as you can tell, being December is almost done. But tomorrow, we will be dealing with celebration. Who is it for? Today we're dealing with mourning. Okay. And realistically trying to figure out how we can get through it. Life absolutely is. I was asked by my psychiatrist years ago, he goes, why didn't you go and get your degree in psychology? I looked at him and I said, well, no offense intended, doctor, but I don't need a sheet of paper on the wall for somebody to tell me I have no idea what I'm talking about. But I have spent my entire life watching people. And this is why I say, when I say these tools work, if they apply to me, I'm using them. Okay, this is why I know the list method works like a charm. Okay, I will also tell you, if you're not happy, you are undoubtedly spending more money than you really should, trying to convince yourself you are happy. Again, it's a bad mix. Okay, so where it comes to mourning, I can't give you a definitive, this is how long it has to take, but I will tell you, if you are near the 21-day mark of a mourning period, find somebody to help pull you out of it. Either to go over things that you've done that you enjoy, or to completely distract you. Okay, very important based on the average 21 days to form a habit or to break one. Because if you let mourning become a habit, it's very difficult to get out of it. Okay, just the reality behind it. You know, the one thing that I will tell you, we've got a couple of weeks left here before the end of the year. We've only got 4 days left before the end of my stream for the year. And at that point, we will be shutting down until the 4th of January. But we got a lot of work to do in the next 3 days. Okay, I really want to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with me and with us today. Really appreciate it. Time to put the past behind us and really start focusing on the future and what we can do to make this world a better place for virtually everybody. And what we got, oh, look at this. Nathan, just a quick shout out there. Join Nathan on the Quantum Show at, where are we? At 10 p.m. Eastern. Okay. 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Okay. Absolutely jump on the show with him. And from that standpoint, thanks so very much for sharing your time with us today. Really appreciate it. Until we meet again, aka tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. PST. Until we meet again, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for